All right, I had a little epiphany today of a previous revelation. I'll try to go over it as best as I can. It's a little tough to explain. Basically, our life is basically a balance, and I'm not saying perfect 50-50 balance, but it's like a cosmic dance with the source and void. So if you're always trying to control things, then where's room for the outer world? If your inner world is always trying to um, create reality, then where's the room for the outer world to dance back with you, if that makes sense? If you're always trying to. Okay, so basically, source gives unconditional love, the void receives truth. I mean, they could swap places too, so. And because source equals void, according to the law of supersymmetry, force and matter are basically identical, or not identical, but they always equal zero, or they always balance out. And then according to the three laws of thermodynamics, this all actually makes sense if the black hole and white hole theory is actually correct, and if it actually exists within our own body of technology. Okay, so let's say your heart is source. We'll just say unconditional love. Okay, we can even say truth. Okay, and it's a giving energy. You know what I mean? It expands the universe. Okay, so let's say you have this is your mind, right? And you're sucking in energy. Now you could be sucking in energy from the quote unquote outside of like outer space, but if you're feeling void in your mind, well, getting energy from the void it's counterproductive. So getting energy from outside of your heart space, like a void doesn't fill a void, so you can only fill it from the source. So the more you do that, the more your void expands, right? And then eventually it'll become a huge void so let's just say once the void gets at a certain point, and I'll just say it's like a black hole, right? And then now at some point in the laws of thermodynamics, it has to contract back, and it has to basically the energy, like Hawking radiation, has to get released, right? So that's why it'll swap. So now your mind or your brain, it turns into source, and your heart turns into the void. So you need to receive. So you receive like a black hole, right? So, and then, well, not just your mind. This would be your outer world. This is your outer world, okay? And just like this, well, I guess once your heart becomes the void, then your inner world is the void, and then your outer world would be source, which would be a good thing, because that would be like heaven on the outside, right? And then you basically fill your heart with this void, and then, or with, sorry, not with the void, with source. And once you fill your heart with source, which would be, in this case, unconditional love and truth, I guess, it'll expand. Your heart will expand. It's like, and then it just keeps going back and forth, right? Maybe I should have actually drawn the white hole as bigger up here, but I just did this as an example, and then, well, because I don't know. Okay, so anyways, so void is like focus. It draws in energy that receives, and source is like an absent-mindedness. It's like an emptiness in a way, kind of like letting go, surrendering, and it draws out energy that gives. And this is the expansion of consciousness, and this is the contraction of consciousness. And if you just keep on giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and keep expanding your consciousness, well, then where's there room for your heart to receive? So your heart needs to become the void sometimes. That's okay. And then this is the path of least resistance, right? Straight down. Hold on, I'm gonna pause it real quick. I gotta think about something. Oh yes, once your heart becomes the void, then you can receive love, and truth from all sources, like all around you. It's like basically just the opposite of what you want to do when your mind is the void. Because when your mind is the void, you don't necessarily want to take in energy from the void. You only want to take in energy from source. And if your world is source, or your brain or whatever source, then yeah, your heart can take in that energy. But if your world is not source, and your heart is source, then your mind only needs to take in source energy. So I guess you would actually not even need a Rosen bridge once your mind becomes filled with source, right? Because I guess you receive it from down, but you can also receive it from quote unquote the outside world, because it's not void. You're not receiving a void from a void. Does that make sense? Because if source was only going to give to source, then who would receive? If void was only receiving a void, then how would it receive? So it has to be these two. It's like that's why they say if the universe is an open and a closed system, it can become a perpetual motion machine. But so anyways, we expand our consciousness through the Rosen bridge of our neck, apparently. And we don't try to fill our void of our mind, which would be, feeling like empty inside, or try to let other things outside of ourselves, quote unquote, outside of ourselves, take our attention from us. And our attention should be on the truth and unconditional love that's in the heart. Let that expand, okay, and then take that energy directly from source and expand your consciousness and fill your outer world with it, and give, not to the outer world necessarily, but I mean receive. Obviously, let your mind receive from your heart. Let your mind receive. And then once your mind receives, your outer world will feel full, and then it's like taking a dump. Once your stomach is full, you gotta go, and you gotta let it go. And now your heart becomes the receiver, and your mind becomes the giver. So you become like a radiant sun, and your energy, you're giving energy now. Your mind is the giver and your heart is the receiver. So you just swap back and forth. But remember, you have to be aware of what state you're in. If you feel confused and or anything like that, then you probably need to start listening to your heart more. If you feel like you're the only one in the world that's good, then you probably need to learn how to receive and release. It's like there's a guy named Basher who does like channels, but he said it's like a rubber band. The further you pull it back, and then once you finally let go, it's the more momentum of the force behind it. So the more we expand our consciousness, actually, and then when we let go to finally receive that in our heart space, like literally miracles, you be heaven on earth, basically, once we completely conceptualize this. Okay, that's all.